All right, everyone, welcome to See You Around again. We're doing another how-to cooking video. We're actually going to be showing you how to make potato chips. As you see here, I've got my ingredients and my equipment to make some homemade potato chips. This is something that we found has been really fantastic for us. Saves you money on going to the store and buying potato chips. Plus, you actually know what goes into making them. They're so highly processed that who knows. So, as you can see here, we've got our Fry Daddy, which we're going to plug in and get those frying here in just a few minutes. We've got our russet potatoes. You can really use any potatoes that you want. Essentially, we're going to show you our process of making potato chips that has worked so far for us. If you want to give it a try, all you need is really a deep fryer, and this is a small one, as you can see. Hopefully it'll work out. So let's get started with these potato chips. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do, at least that I like to do, I don't mind keeping the skin on my chips, but I definitely want it clean since these russets do tend to be a little bit dirty. So essentially just give them a good scrubbing, and once they are clean, we'll just kind of pat them dry a little bit, and then we will go ahead and slice them up. Okay, so what we've had to do, I've done this a couple different ways before. I've sliced it up typically by doing it by hand on a mandolin. What I'm actually going to do today is I had to, as you can see, slice it a little thinner. We're actually going to use this electric food processor. It's going to be smaller chips, but it's still going to taste okay. So we'll go ahead and turn this on. Ooh, it's fast. Here we go. Get our handy dandy doodad here and go for it. Like that, we have chips. Thicker than I normally have, but they'll taste good. Alright, so what we want to do, the first few times I made chips, I noticed I had this issue. Because they are so starchy, we have to make sure that we soak them in some salt water. The salt will really help draw out that starch. And then we're going to rinse them off with some regular water. So right now, we've got our water right here. I'm just going to add probably half a tablespoon or so of salt in there. Let them soak while we're cutting up the rest of the chips, and that'll draw out that starch, make them a little bit crispier so they're not as, I guess, like a French fry. So if you want it more like a French fry, I guess don't do this. But it makes it a lot better for frying too. We want to make sure they stay in some cool water too. That's one thing I want to point out, make sure it is cool water, because we don't want them to get discolored in the process, so this should help out quite a bit with that. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to get our fryer ready to go. We've got these soaking, as you can see here, in the salt water. Normally I fry up on the countertop, but it's going to be a little bit easier to clean up here on our table. You naturally get a little bit of oil splatter, so wherever you do this, you're probably used to frying already, and that's okay. This particular fryer uses 4 cups of oil, and we usually just use vegetable or canola oil. We recently cleaned this out, so we'd fried some chicken, and that tends to leave behind some fat on the bottom, makes it really rancid. So I cleaned that out already. What we are going to do is pour 4 cups of oil in here, get it turned on and warming up, and then we will be good to start frying. Now, what I'm going to be doing next in just a minute here is rinsing off just a handful of chips, just enough to fit in the oil, and we'll rinse them off with water and just kind of flip them dry as best we can, throw them in the fire and watch them turn into chips. Oil's all warmed up, so we're going to take a handful. We don't want to use too much because we don't want the oil to bubble over. But usually about, I'd say this much or so is usually good to begin with for one round. Just kind of rinse it off with our colander here in some cold or at least cool water. Once that's pretty well rinsed, turn that off. Shake the water out. The more water that's in the potatoes, the more that oil is going to bubble, and the last thing you want to do is have that thing explode on you. So the more water you can get out of the potatoes, I just like holding them and flicking them like this. The better off you're going to be. The crispier your potatoes will be, as well as the less likely you are to burn your house down. That's probably good enough. I'm gonna have a really thin one there. It's almost see-through. So what we're gonna do as best we can, we're gonna go ahead and come over here, add them to our oil. This should start bubbling up immediately, which means it's hot enough. The great thing about this fryer is it is pretty much temperature controlled. So you can't adjust the temperature, but you just have to adjust the way it cooks. So one thing you have to be careful of is watching how high that oil is bubbling up, because you definitely don't want it to go overboard, which I have had happen before, and that makes for a nasty cleanup. Okay, so this is about the color I go for, is a nice golden brown. So the thicker the chip, like these are pretty thick, the longer they're gonna have to be in there for. The thinner, obviously, they cook a lot faster. You wanna be careful you don't burn any. We got a couple in here that are a little bit well done, but as you can see, we've got some edges that are a little bit more well done than the opposite edges, just due to the way that slicer sliced them up. So, hey Audrey, I like to go ahead and put them on a cooling rack that has a paper towel on top. That paper towel is going to help just collect some of that grease from the oil. And then I'll show you how I flavor them here in just a second. And then they'll be ready for eating once they've cooled down. All right, so we've got those out here. They've been cooling for just a couple of minutes. So what I usually like to do, we have two different flavors here. We've got them both from Buffalo Wild Wings. The first one is chipotle barbecue. And this is one of our favorites. I've made this for people at work, family, friends. They love the salt and vinegar. So I usually do one kind of alternating flavors. I'm gonna take these after they've cooled down so that I can at least touch them, throw them in a baggie, and then typically what I'll do is the next batch of chips, I'll throw them in a separate baggie for the other flavors that we want. And you can make as many flavors as you desire. Throw those in there. I like to throw them in there when there's still a little bit of oil so they're not super dry. Now this you have to be careful with. You don't want to add too much flavoring. Otherwise it's going to be overpowering. So it takes lots of practice to get it right. So just a little in there, and usually I'll add the flavoring with the first batch, throw the second batch in there. I won't add any flavoring, and then on the third batch I'll add flavoring again just so it's not overpowering. You can always add more flavoring later, but you can't take off flavoring. So give it a little shake around here. Doesn't take much to coat all sides, and then we're gonna give them a try and see how they turned out. So we'll get one that's got some nice, I like some flavor to it.
Can I?
Give it a try.
Can I try it?
Audrey wants to try one too.
Can I try it? Can I try
What do you think, Audrey?
Good.
Good? A little spicy. I love them. Quinn, you can try one too. Come on over here. Absolutely delicious. So make whatever flavors you want. Hopefully you like the way we kind of tried our recipe here. It's worked out for us. It makes a good homemade snack.
Oh.
And with that in mind, Quinny, what do you think? A little spicy? That's all right.
Really hot.
We'll make some salt and vinegar later. It's not quite as hot. So that's it. That's how the See You Around family makes chips. I hope you like this video. You can give it a try if you want. Tell us what you think. In the meantime, as always, don't forget to tell those you love them. And we will see you around.
See ya around.
See you around on the next video tomorrow.
Bye.
Had an accident.
Yes, we did.
I think we're good. Are we good?
We're good. We're good. We'll fix it.